the book. Now, if you saw part 1 of this series, then you know we already identified who the true church is. In fact, we went to Acts chapter 7 and we saw that Moshe and the Israelites were among the first members of what is known to be as the church. In fact, in Acts chapter 7, the word church we found was translated from a Greek word, ekklesia, which is made up of 2 parts. Ek, meaning out of or from, and klesia, meaning to call. So literally, we found that the word church actually means the called out or the called out ones. So our next duty was to find out who these called out ones actually were. And in order to find that answer, we went to another one of our ancestor prophets known as Oshay. And when we went to the book of Oshay, chapter 11, verse 1, we saw that the Most High Yahuwah spoke through the prophet and said, "When Yashrael was a child, then I loved him and called my son out of Egypt." So very clearly, the called out ones are Yashrael, those of us who are the Israelites, those of us who are being called Negroes today. Now, it's very important that we have this understanding as to who we are as a people, because the Most High has given us a specific position as his chosen people, and he's also given us specific responsibilities as his chosen people. So a big part of our journey is going to be described in this part 2. We're going to be dealing with the correction of the called out ones. And when I say that, there is a very pivotal point in our journey as a people that is described right within Scripture that helps us to understand how we actually ended up where we are today as a nation of people. In fact, it shows exactly how we've been stripped of our true identity and we've been put in a position where we've been scattered away from our homeland. So before we get to this, we first must also understand how Scripture identifies us. If you go to Psalms chapter 95, you're going to find that the psalmist wrote, "For our mighty one, Yahuwah, is our Elohim, and we are the people of his pasture and the sheep of his hand." So it's very important to note that we are considered to be the sheep of the Most High. Yes, the people of Yashrael, those of us who are the true Israelites, those who are being called Negroes today, we are members of the flock of the Most High. In fact, you also find through our prophet Yeshayahu, also known as Isaiah, in chapter 53 of his book, that he writes, "All we like sheep have gone astray." And that's because our nation of people, us the Israelites, have gone astray away from the ways of the Most High. So, in order to first understand where we went astray, we can actually go back to the time period of our ancestor, King Solomon. Now, King Solomon was the son of King Dawood. And so when King Solomon was on the throne, he had not done right before the eyes of the Most High Yahuwah. In fact, in 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 11, you'll find that the Most High Yahuwah warned King Solomon that he was going to tear the kingdom out of his hand because Solomon had not kept the covenant and the statutes and the commandments that the Most High had given to him and to our people. So, with this understanding, you know that as King Solomon had been replaced by his son because King Solomon died, the kingdom of Yashrael was indeed split into 2. So our kingdom was actually comprised then of 2 parts. One part being the northern kingdom, which actually consisted of 10 of our 12 tribes. In fact, that northern kingdom was known by other titles such as the House of Yashrael, as well as the House of Ephraim, and the House of Yosef. So these were just some of the main titles you would see when you look through Scripture in reference to this northern kingdom from our split. Now, the second part of our kingdom was actually known as the southern kingdom. In fact, the southern kingdom consisted initially of 2 of our 12 tribes. In fact, one of those tribes was our king tribe, the tribe of Yehuda or Judah. And this was definitely the tribe that the Most High chose from which he would host the kings of our people. The second tribe associated with the southern kingdom was the tribe of Benjamin, also known as Benjamin. Now later on, a third tribe joined our southern kingdom, and that was the tribe of the Lewi, which actually contained the priests of our people. Many of the Lewi, or the Levites, had left from the northern kingdom because the northern kingdom had fallen into sin. In fact, when you go to the book of Oshay, chapter 4, you're going to find that the Most High actually denounced Ephraim as being joined to idols or idolatry, because at that point Ephraim had actually turned its back towards the ways of the Most High, and in fact they no longer had temples for which the Lewi, our Levitical priests, were actually to serve in, and that's why many of our priests ended up making their journey over into the southern kingdom. So we should know that the kingdom of Yahudah, or the southern kingdom, was actually faithful still at this point to the Most High. And so this was also declared in the book of Oshay, chapter 11. Now, we've got to understand why our people were split up into these two kingdoms, that they operated like two separate nations. In fact, we often went to war with one another as though we were not the same people. Now, if you look at our history of captivities as a people, you'll find that we went through quite a number of them. In fact, there are so many captivities and bondages that are actually recorded throughout Scripture that if you go through the book of Judges alone, you will see so many periods where we were under the hands of different groups of people, such as the Ammonites or Moab or the Philistines. Now, if you start with the point of our people being under our major captivity in Egypt, and this was when our people were still not established in covenant before the Most High. We had not yet been before Mount Sinai, at least. At that point, when our people left, the very next captivity that our people actually experienced was the Assyrian captivity. And this was actually a captivity experienced only by the northern kingdom. They were carried off into Assyria by the king of Assyria, and they never collectively, those of the northern kingdom, made it back to our land of Yashrael. They actually were dispersed during this captivity and were scattered to different parts as a result of this captivity in Assyria. And this was done because they, as a people, had not turned back to the ways of the Most High Yahuwah. And part of their responsibility in order to return to their land was to do just that. Now, when you look at the southern kingdom had gone in and out of different captivities. In fact, after the northern kingdom went into their Assyrian captivity, our southern kingdom went into their Babylonian captivity. And they had done some time over in Babylon and then were released once the Persian Medes came and actually conquered the Babylonians and then brought our people back into our land of Jerusalem. Now, after that period, the Greeks came in and actually conquered the Persian Medes and ended up taking rulership or authority over our people while we were even within our territories. After the Greeks, then came the captivity of the Romans. That's right, in 70 AD, the Romans actually stormed our land and actually took over our capital, and we fell under their rulership. In fact, even when you go into our American captivity, which came through ways of the transatlantic trade, you'll find that the American captivity is nothing more than an extension of the Roman captivity. So it's very important that we understand this history of captivity, because this played a very important role in the scattering of our people. In fact, when you go to the book of Daniel and you look at the prophecies related to the four beasts that were going to take rulership over the world, over our people, you'll find that those 4 beasts actually correspond to the 4 captivities of our kingdom tribe of Yahudah and its collective house of Yahudah, the house of Judah. In fact, the first beast dealt with Babylon, the second beast dealt with Medo-Persian, and then the Greeks were dealing with the third beast, and then the 4th and final beast is that of Rome. So we are still currently in our final captivity as we speak. In fact, if you go to the book of Yirmiyahu or Jeremiah chapter 50, you're going to find there that our people once again are described as sheep. In fact, we're described as a scattered sheep. And the reason we were described as scattered was because the lions had driven us away. Now, if you look very clearly, Yirmiyahu, our prophet, describes that first the king of Assyria had devoured us, as they had taken our 10 tribes from the northern kingdom. And then last, this Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had broken our bones. That's right, because remember, the structure of our people was upheld with our kingdom, and our kingdom was the southern kingdom. And so Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon had taken our house of Yahudah or Judah into captivity. And so that was the breaking of the bones of our people of Yisrael. So it's very important to see how this played out, because once again, this was the scattering of our people, as you see very clearly in the passage of Yirmiyahu chapter 50, verse 17. So when we think about this scattering of our people, we should then understand what diaspora means. In fact, diaspora is simply the movement, migration, settlement, or scattering of a people away from their homeland. And that's why us, the people who are the true Israelites, who are being called Negroes today, have been away from our true land of origin, our homeland over there in the continent known as Africa, specifically in the northeast section, where our territories are located. In fact, our territories really range from the Nile River up to the river Euphrates. This was specifically declared by the Most High to be the territory that belongs to our people. So, understanding this, we should also ask, why did the Most High scatter us? Now, we can go to different points in Scripture to find the answer to this. In fact, you can go to Yirmiyahu or Jeremiah chapter 17, and there you're going to find that the Most High told our people that we were going to be discontinued from our heritage that he had given us, and that we were going to be caused to serve our enemies in a land that we did not know. So this was actually foretelling the fact that our people were going to be scattered away from all the territories that we were familiar with, and we were going to go into bondage. And this had to do with the sin of our people. So part of why we were being scattered was to fulfill this prophecy that the Most High had put on our people because of the sins that our people were committing against his laws, statutes, and commandments. See, we never rebounded from the sins of our king Solomon. When he worshipped false deities and he actually went after foreign mighty ones, that was sin before the eyes of the Most High Yahuwah. And so as we continue to carry out that sin, we then warranted this scattering. In fact, you can even go to the prophet Ezekiel in chapter 20, and you'll find that the Most High said, because we did not execute the judgments that he had given us, and we despised the statutes that he had given to our people, therefore he gave us over to statutes that were not good for us, and judgments that we were not supposed to live by. So it's very important to even look at the book of Devarim, or Deuteronomy chapter 32. You're going to see that the Most High had also warned our people that he was going to scatter us into corners, the four corners of the earth, and that he was going to make the remembrance of our people cease from among men. So this scattering played a huge role in carrying out this word from the Most High. In fact, you can even go into the apocryphal book of Baruch, chapter 2, verse 30, and you'll find that Baruch writes how the Most High declared that he knew that we would not hear him because we are stiff-necked people. In fact, the Most High also declared that in the land of our captivities we would remember ourselves. So this was all foretold through the words of the Most High, through our prophets, that we were going to be scattered, and that we were actually going to go through this process to be removed from our true heritage as a people, and that we were going to be no longer remembered among men. And this was for a specific purpose. It was to correct our people. In fact, if we were to look closely at why we were scattered, we'll see just that. In fact, go to the book of Amos, chapter 3, verse 2, and you'll see that the Most High declared, "You only have I known of all families of the earth," speaking of Yisrael. And he says, "Therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities." So very clearly, because of this relationship our people have with the Most High, the fact that he chose us out of all the families of the earth, he then said that he also would punish us for our iniquities. Now, to make this picture a little clearer, you can even go to the book of Yirmiyahu, or Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 11. And there you're going to see the Most High makes it clear that he is there to save our people. And although he would make a full end of all the other nations that he has scattered us to, that he would not make a full end of us, but he would correct us in measure, and that he was not going to leave us altogether unpunished for the sins of our people. Now, to understand this in even more light, go to the epistle of Hebrews, written by our ancestor apostle Shaul. In fact, you're going to find right there that Shaul declares how whom Yahuwah loves, he chastens and scourges every son whom he receives. So very clearly, the reason this was being done was because the Most High chose our people, and he loves our people, and therefore he was chastening us. He was correcting us as his son. In fact, if you go back to part 1 of this series, you remember that I pointed out scripture in the book of Shemot, or Exodus chapter 19, as well as even Exodus chapter 22. And specifically, I pointed out how the Most High made it very clear that he calls us his son. Our people are declared to be the son of the Most High Yahuwah. So, with that being said, let's understand that there is a safety plan that the Most High has put in place for our people. In fact, if we want to understand that this safety plan is a cycle that our people have lived through time and time again, but by us understanding where we are within the cycle, we can now carry out the proper steps to return to where we need to be as the people of the Most High. In fact, I call this a safety plan for a reason, because the S in this safety plan deals with the fact that our people start off this cycle by first sinning against the Most High Yahuwah. After we sin against the Most High Yahuwah, we usually arouse the anger or the aberration of the Most High Yahuwah. As a result of that, we fall from Yahuwah's favor, and we are delivered into the hands of our enemies. In fact, while we're in the hands of our enemies, we then experience distress during separation from Yahuwah's way. After that, our people usually turn back to Yahuwah. Now, this has not always happened throughout history that we've all turned back to the Most High Yahuwah, because there are times where we've fallen so deep into our ignorance as to who we are as a people and as to what the ways of the Most High have been, that our people did not even have the wherewithal to turn back to the Most High in the proper way. However, this final step always happens. The Most High Yahuwah sends his deliverer to free us from bondage. So this is exactly what has happened to our people even up to this point. And as you can see, when you look at this cycle, you can go through different passages, especially in the books of Judges, for instance, or the books of Kings, and you'll find that our people have gone through this cycle time and time again. In fact, I have a video on YouTube that deals with this safety plan. And so you can definitely check that out for those specific parallels. Now, another thing we need to ask ourselves is that question of where are we now? Now, in order for us to understand where we are now, in that safety cycle, we are definitely at the point where we need to turn back to Yahuwah. But let's understand how we got even to this point of our captivity. In fact, if you go to Mark chapter 13, verse 14, you're going to see that the Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach, that's right, Yahushua, our Messiah, actually spoke to our people and warned us that when we saw the abomination of desolation that was spoken of by our prophet Daniel, related to that fourth beast that we spoke about a little earlier in this video, specifically when we were to see that we were to flee into the mountains. And so an actual parallel to this verse is found in Luke chapter 21 verse 24, where you see that the Most High also allowed our Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach, to speak to our people about what was going to come at this point of the abomination of desolation. In fact, he talks about how we, our people, were going to fall by the edge of the sword, and we were going to be led away captive into all nations. So our land, Jerusalem, was then going to be trodden down by the other nations, the Gentiles, while we were led away into captivity. As I mentioned, this has happened to our people time and time again. But this specific period, which was being foretold by the Messiah, was what took place in 70 AD when the Romans actually stormed our land of Jerusalem. They stormed our capital, took over our temple and our capital, and forced us out in exile, and they murdered many of our people, as well as enslaved many of our people right there in our land. So let's understand that this is our history. In fact, if you go to several different maps of antiquity, for instance, if you go to an old map found in the year of 1747, you'll see that there is a region of Negro land located in the west coast region of this continent known as Africa. Now, what you'll find is that in 70 AD, that period of time that the Messiah had told our people was coming, where we were going to need to flee from our land, that our people did just that. They fled from the northeast section of the continent known as Africa, our territories of Zion or Yashrael, and many specifically leaving out of the territory of Jerusalem, our capital, and then fled into the west coast area, where you would find in the region of the Slave Coast, Gold Coast area, specifically our kingdom of Judah, our kingdom of Yahudah, was set up right there, charted on this 1747 map. So this is where our people were residing. Now remember, this was specifically the southern kingdom of our people. Many of our people went to the southern region of the continent as well, but large numbers of us, in the millions, went over to this specific west coast region and set up our kingdom right there, which is why it is actually written of on this map. Now, if you go further into what happened after this trek into the west coast region of Africa, you'll find that, of course, the transatlantic slave trade ships actually arrived within this area and picked up our ancestors and enslaved our ancestors, and then dispersed us or scattered us to different parts of the world in bondage. So this is truly our history, and this is why you'll find that the Most High even spoke far in advance through our prophet Zechariah in chapter 2 verse 6, and he warned us to hold there. Flee from the land of the north, declares Yahuwah, for I have dispersed you as the four winds of the heavens, declares Yahuwah. So very clearly the Most High was telling us what was coming to our people. And in fact, it was the people of the north that came and caused this dispersion of our people. In fact, these were the sons of Japhet, also known as Japheth, one of the sons of Noah, through whom there was prophecy spoken The prophecy of Genesis chapter 9 shows that Japhet, or the Europeans, would dwell in the tents of Shem, the Israelites, those of us being called Negroes today, and Canaan, the descendants of Ham, or the Africans, would be a helper unto Japhet in accomplishing this. Both Europeans and Africans sold us, the Israelites, into slavery. Because, as we mentioned, the transatlantic trade took place right here at the same place where our southern kingdom of Yisrael was situated. So those of us who were tied to this transatlantic trade are primarily from the southern kingdom of Yisrael. So with that, you can even go into the Strong's Concordance, or you can look it up on a Blue Letter Bible, and you will find that specifically the diaspora of our people usually referred to scattered Israelites who were living in Gentile lands. In fact, you can clearly see that it usually dealt with Israelites who were dispersed among foreign nations, or those of us who were being called Christians who were scattered abroad among the Gentiles. Now just note, Christians were always Israelites, not in the period of talking about those Greeks prior to our period, but I'm speaking of the people who were being called Christians in association with following the Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach. We were called Christians, but we were Israelites, and we were specifically Israelites who followed the Messiah, Yahushua. Now, that title of Christian was not a title that our people put on ourselves, but it was the people who were trying to shame us. It was those who actually had been members of our oppressing group. Those who were oppressing our people called us Christians, and they were doing that as a derogatory term. I cover that also in another part of this video. So with that being said, I want us also to understand that when you go to the book of Bereshit, or Genesis chapter 48, it's spoken of very clearly how our people were going to be scattered much further in advance than this thing happening to our people. In fact, when you find that Yaakov, or Jacob, was actually giving favor through his spoken word to Yosef and his sons, that he specifically blessed Ephraim before he did the older brother, who was Manasseh. And there was a reason why, because he had known that the younger brother, Ephraim, was going to be greater than Manasseh. It was because his seed, the seed of Ephraim, would become a multitude of nations. So this was prophecy that had been spoken well in advance. In fact, even if you go up to the time of our prophet Yeshayahu, or Isaiah, in chapter 27 of his book, you'll find that it was prophesied that the Most High was going to cause them that come of Yaakov to take root, and that Yisrael shall blossom and bud and fill the face of the world with fruit. See, our people were declared that we were going to be scattered among the entire planet, and that we were going to be fruitful. We were going to multiply as a people. And that's exactly what has happened to our people as a result of our scatterings. Now, just understand that when you went through that safety cycle a little earlier in this video, that safety cycle was set into play by a law that is actually situated amongst our people of Yisrael. In fact, if you go to the book of Vayikra, or Leviticus chapter 18, you're going to find that the Most High put a law on our promised land. When he established his covenant with our people and he gave us the land that we were to live in as his people, the territories of Yisrael, he specifically warned us that if we committed any of the sins or the abominations that would defile us as a people, that we were not only defiling ourselves as a people, but we were defiling our land, and therefore our land would vomit us up and spew us out. So that's why we would go into diaspora, or we would be scattered away from our homeland, because the sins of our people made our land, our motherland, sick. And as a result, our motherland would spew us out. And we would not be able to return from our captivities back to our land until we turn back to the ways of the Most High Yahuwah. But we could not live in our holy or set apart land unless we were living in accordance to the holy set apart covenant, laws, statutes, commandments, and judgments that the Most High gave to us as his people. In fact, if you go to 2 Chronicles chapter 7, you see just that, is that the Most High warned us that us, the people who are called by his name, if we would humble ourselves, pray, and seek his face, and turn from our wicked ways, that he would forgive our sin and he would heal our land. So that's why we are still in our dispersion or scattering away from our homeland today, is because our people have not turned away from the wickedness that we fell into as a nation. Now, we need to understand that very clearly those of our ancestors who were taken and enslaved during the transatlantic trade were indeed the people who had suffered this punishment of being spewed out of the homeland of our people. And in fact, they had actually taken very literally the name of the Most High Yah among the names of our people at this time period of the transatlantic trade, as we look at the roster that shows the name of Yah throughout many of the names on that list. So just understand that was an ancient Israelite custom, because by us carrying on the name of the Most High Yah, you would see that other people would understand who we were as a people, and they would become afraid of us because they knew we had the Most High protecting our people. So this was the seal that the Most High put on our people, was that we had indeed been called by his name. And you find that in the book of Nehemiah, chapter 10, where many of our people actually had the name of Yah embedded within the names of themselves. It's extremely important to understand that. Now, who is going to be saved? You know, looking at our condition, the saving is actually coming to the people of Yashrael. In fact, the sheep of the Most High are promised to have a Savior. In fact, if you go to Ezekiel chapter 34, you'll find that it says, as a shepherd seeks out his flock in the day, that he is among his sheep that are scattered, so will I seek out my sheep, and will deliver them out of all places where they have been scattered in the cloudy and dark day. So the Most High is coming for his sheep. We are still scattered to this day, but this is not going to be for long. In fact, let's understand that when we're speaking of our status, the Redeemer was sent for us, the sheep of the Most High. Although many people read John 3:16 and they say, well, you know, didn't the Most High love the entire world? Isn't that why he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life? Many people do not understand that they are reading that verse completely out of its context. In fact, in order to understand the context of that verse, you have to go back to our prophets. Go back to Yeshayahu or Isaiah chapter 45 verse 17. And you're going to find that it says, but Yashrael shall be saved in Yahuwah with an everlasting salvation. Ye shall not be ashamed nor confounded, world without end. That's right. Yashrael is considered to be a world in itself. We mean the world to the Most High. He chose us and made a covenant with our people, and we were set apart, declared holy, consecrated unto the Most High Yahuwah. So we are a world within ourselves, according to the prophets. In fact, you can even go to the Messiah in Matthew chapter 15, and he clears up what's found in the book of John chapter 3 verse 16. In fact, he says in Matthew chapter 15 verse 24, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Yashrael. So once again, you see, we are being referred to as the sheep of Yashrael. And this indeed was a period where many of our people were lost. So the Messiah had come to free us from our state of being blind and in darkness and in captivity. And so he set forth the truth that would lead us back to the ways of the Most High, so that we can live in peace and safety, and that we could also now be found. Now, with that being known, that's why the prophet Yashayahu in chapter 59 says, and a redeemer will come to Zion, to those in Yaakov who turn from transgression. So, once again, this was declared by the Most High Yahuwah that the Redeemer was being sent to our people, for those of us who would turn away from the transgression, which is basically sin, which is breaking of the laws of the Most High that he gave us with his covenant. So we've got to understand that. In fact, if you go all the way to Revelation chapter 3 verse 9, we got to consider what this passage is saying in Revelation chapter 3 verse 9, because if we were to think that loving the world on the part of the Most High means that he loves everyone, then why would the Messiah have to come in verse 9 of Revelations and say to those who are of the synagogue of Shaitan that they should come then and worship at our feet to know that he has loved us, the true people of the Most High? So very clearly there is a group of people, the true Yehudim, also known as Jews, the true Jews of the Most High, who are being declared as the people that the Most High has loved. So this is where we need to start to connect the dots and understand things within their true context. There is a chosen people that the Most High is referring to. Now, you can even go to the book of Yohanan or John chapter 18, and you're going to find in verses 20 through 22 that it says, our Messiah, Yahushua, answered and spoke to our people. He said, I spake openly to the world. I ever taught in the synagogue and in the temple whither the Jews always resort, and in secret have I said nothing. Now this is very important to note, because when he said he spoke openly to the world, the Messiah makes it clear who this world is by being specific and saying he taught in the synagogue. That's where our people, the Yehudim, or the Jews, were gathering. He spoke in the temple, where only the Yehudim, the Jews, were allowed to gather. He also said that he said nothing in secret. So all this that was spoken to the world was spoken to the people to whom it was directed, the world known as Yashrael, those of us the true Yehudim, the same people that the Messiah declares that he loves in Revelation chapter 3 verse 9. So, with that being said, how will we be saved? Well, we kind of already alluded to it, how the Most High Yahuwah said that he was going to have us gather from all the places to which we've been scattered. But let's actually look at some prophet. Let's look at some prophetic passages about this happening. Now, first, I want us to reflect on what was found in Acts chapter 7 about Moshe being in the church, or amongst the called out ones, in the wilderness, right? With our fathers, our ancestors, before that Mount Sinai. If you go to Ezekiel chapter 20, you're going to see that there's going to be a second Exodus that matches what happened in Acts chapter 7. In fact, the Most High Yahuwah declares to the prophet Ezekiel in chapter 20, verse 34, that he's going to bring us out from among the people that we have been scattered into. That's right. It's extremely important we understand this, because even when you go down to verse 36, you find that it's going to say that the Most High is going to plead with our people face to face, the same way that he pled with our fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt. So the same way he dealt with our people when we were being led out of Egypt by Moshe is the way he's going to plead with our people of Yashrael in that day that he comes back to gather us from these places that we've been scattered to. In fact, if you even go into the prophet Joel chapter 3, you'll find there in verse 2 that the Most High said he's going to gather all the nations and bring them down to the valley of Yehoshaphat, and that he's going to plead there with them for his people, for his heritage, and specifically those of us, Yashrael, whom have been scattered amongst the nations. So our land was parted by these people, and the Most High is going to come and gather us back together and plead with these other nations for us, his heritage, his people, Yashrael. Now, also note in the prophet Yeshayahu chapter 43, the Most High declared that to our people that we should fear not, because he is with us. In fact, he says he's going to breed our seed, he's going to bring our seed from the east and gather us from the west. And he's going to say to the north, give up, and to the south, keep not back. Bring my sons from far and my daughters from the ends of the earth. So once again, the Most High made it clear he's going to gather all of our people. In fact, if you go back to Bereshit or Genesis, you're going to find that the Most High Yahuwah specifically said that same passage to our forefather Yaakov, whose name was later changed to Yashrael, from whom we descend. In fact, you'll see he says, fear not, for I am with thee, and will bless thee and multiply thy seed for my servant Abraham's sake. So our father Yaakov, also known as Jacob, was given this promise that his seed was going to be blessed and multiplied. And he was told to fear not, because the Most High was with him. Just as our people Yashrael were told in the book of Yeshayahu. Now, even if you go to our prophet Yirmiyahu or Jeremiah chapter 33, you'll see that the Most High made it very clear that he plans to restore the fortunes of Yahudah, and that he is going to restore the fortunes of our people Yashrael. And he's going to rebuild us as we were at the first. And he's going to cleanse us from all of the iniquity, all of the sin, the transgressions of our people that have defiled us. The Most High promises that he is going to cleanse us from this. So remember, this was the correction that he set in place by scattering us as his people. Now, if you go to Acts chapter 1 verse 6, this restoration that was spoken of in the prophet Yirmiyahu or Jeremiah is the same thing our ancestor disciples were looking for when they were doing their ministry for the Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach. In fact, you're going to find in Acts chapter 1 verse 6 that the disciples asked and said, wilt thou at this time restore again the kingdom to Yashrael? They were asking the Messiah if the kingdom was going to be restored to our people, because they understood what was written in the prophets about our kingdom being reestablished and restored under the power of the Most High Yahuwah, setting the Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach, up on the throne to reign over all the other nations. Now, if you go to Ezekiel chapter 39 verse 28, you'll see that the Most High declares even there that we would know that the Most High Yahuwah is our mighty one, because he made us go into exile among the nations, and then he gathered us, Yashrael, again to our own land, and he was going to leave us no longer in these scattered places. So the Most High, once again, has declared who he is by his power of scattering our people and having us go through this correction process, this cleansing process, this humbling process to our people, so that we could then be prepared to return back to the land that he made for us. Now, if you go even into Ezekiel chapter 37 verse 19, and you know about the prophecy related to the dry bones, and you also know about the prophecy related to the sticks, the two sticks that were placed in the hands of the prophet Ezekiel, you'll find that the Most High declared that the interpretation of the sticks that were held by prophet Ezekiel were that one represented the house of Joseph, or the house of Ephraim, and all the tribes associated with that house. And then the other was for the other part of our kingdom, the southern kingdom, the house of Yahudah or Judah, and the tribes associated with it. And that the two were going to be made into one stick, because that represented the restoration of our kingdom that had been split in two after the death of King Solomon. So this is the good news that was to be preached amongst our people, was that our people were truly going to be restored under the power of the Most High Yahuwah through our Redeemer, the Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach, that was set up by the Most High Yahuwah for our people's redemption. So, as you could see, even in Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 24, it talks about how Dawood, the servant of the Most High, would be king over our people. That's because the Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach, directly descends from the seed line in the bloodline of King Dawood. So he is fit to sit on the throne of our people, because we have a law in place that says in order for you to be king over Yisrael, you must be one through the tribe of Yehuda or Judah, but specifically from the seed line of King Dawood, because this is the covenant that the Most High Yahuwah, our mighty one, established with King Dawood, because King Dawood was righteous. He was a man after the heart of the Most High Yahuwah. So you'll see that it says that, of course, he would be king over us, and we would have one shepherd. So instead of being broken up into those two nations, those two separate kingdoms, the northern versus the southern kingdom, we would be one again under one king. This is the good news to be preached to our people. Go even to Ezekiel chapter 39, verse 28. And as I said, that exile that we're being brought back from is related to us being brought back as one nation under our Messiah. You can go to Oshe chapter 3, verse 5, and it's very clear that it's even declared that the sons of Yisrael will return and seek Yahuwah, our mighty one, and Dawood, our king, and we would come trembling to Yahuwah and his goodness in the last days. So this is all about a gathering of our people of Yisrael. In fact, go to Yohana or John chapter 10, verse 16, and you'll see that the Most High also spoke through the Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach, who said, "And other sheep I have." So we're talking about Yisrael because we're talking about sheep. He says, "which are not of this fold," because remember, we were split up into two folds. "But them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold and one shepherd." So very clearly, the Messiah is echoing the same words that were prophesied through Ezekiel in chapter 37, verse 24. Now, this is very clearly what the correction of our people has been about. It was about purifying, cleansing, and correcting our people so that we would be ready to return back to the land of Yisrael, but this time for us to go to a kingdom that is to be established forever, an everlasting kingdom on which throne is going to be our Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach, under the unction of the Most High Yahuwah, the everlasting. So this is it. Our people are ready to be set up. So if we go to part 3 of this series, we're going to find out more about our people, and specifically how our people have become commercialized. Because very clearly, as we went through this journey, we saw that the Most High was still only dealing with our nation of people, Yisrael. So how has this truth of ours been commercialized to try to replace our people as being the chosen people of the Most High, when very clearly the Most High made these promises to our nation of Yisrael? Join me for part 3, and we're definitely going to cover that. But once again, shalom, shalom to my people. Thank you for listening.